Yes, those things that have not done seems to be the problem because of the reliance of oil, as you have stated in your opening assertion. But looking at all of this, this over reliance on oil has ensured that we have been severely affected by fluctuations in global oil prices. Now, how has this left us vulnerable to price shocks?
Oh, it would always leave you vulnerable to price shocks. Once you rely, you then mean you have a budget deficit. Because if you
Mm,
say, for example, that you want to be able to do 2,006,000 barrels per day, and you expect that oil prices will be, say, 70 barrels or 120 $120 per barrel, and it goes to half of that price, you already have a budget deficit if 90% of your forex is coming from there, over
mm-hmm.
50% of your revenue is also coming from there. It immediately becomes a problem, right? Because it means that you're going to derive less than half from what should provide you 50%. And those other things you can't really guarantee, right? So it leaves us vulnerable, leaves the economy vulnerable. You can wake up and something and there's a good example if you read the gentleman's book. I don't want to go into mentioning names and all of that. Um, Oil prices changed and it became broke and it
Yeah.
became bankrupt. Whilst the ship the ship was laden with petroleum products. So that's what happens. So imagine that that's also a country.
Mm.
So those shocks just can get us very poor. See what's happening in countries like Indonesia. So yeah, over reliance just means that international vagaries, international issues just mean that you're in trouble,
Oh,
and even is worse as the world now transitions.
true. Transitions to tech. But what can we do? Have we as a country taken steps to go beyond oil? Like the president has been talking about agriculture, we're talking about now there's a new oil, technology and all of that. Have we taken concrete steps to, or is it showing that the steps we are taking is actually pushing us towards non-oil sector and getting some revenue from there and moving us maybe like 60, 70% away from oil?
Yeah, I think it was worse, right? I think at some point it was 80% revenue, 90% forex. So if it's
Mm-hmm.
50%, it means that there are other things that have come to the fore. I think taxation, I have reservations with some provisions around the taxation anyway, around CGT and a few things that I think maybe would have put more thought into or more consideration. But that said, tax revenue, I think government is doing a bit more around that, encouraging the guys who are doing fintech, encouraging some of that. But you also need to be careful that some of the signals, even around the tax, don't end up scaring people elsewhere,
Mm.
right? The nomads and all of that. Because the world, like you said, data, tech is becoming the new oil. And I think that as a country, we're not doing that badly in terms of the individuals. I think government needs to do a lot around encouraging people in that space, right? Then you see a few non-oil around agriculture. You hear people say they are exporting certain agricultural products outside of the country and are generating revenue. Real estate is gone. Yeah, it's been good. I mean, there have been challenges recently because of fluctuation in forex, forex itself has been more stable in the last few months, but prior to that time. But overall, I think we've moved from 90, 80% oil, both forex and even revenue, to if you are doing 50%, it shows that we've made progress. And I think we're the only country in the world that relies largely on one or two items, to be honest. Our
Mm-hmm.
services too are great, right? Consultancies are doing well, whether it's legal consultancy, whether it's tax, whether it's a big four. You see, so the knowledge economy is something I also see that is driving the country. And even for the oil and gas, there's more emphasis on gas, which I think even with transition will still be the transition bus stop. And there are a lot of interesting presidential directives that encourage more people to do gas. But we also then need to be careful around implementation of some of these things because Nigeria's problem usually isn't thought leadership or policies. It's when it comes to implementation. I think those are the issues. So I think that there's much more than oil. And to be honest, I tell people, and I was doing some math, we're not even as rich as we think we are for oil. When you do a per capita, when you do volumes divided by our population, it's probably 2.5 barrels per year per person. It's not as great as we think. If we are doing 1,580 barrels, if we did
Okay.
that for last year and
Uh-huh.
divide the population about divided by 237 million to our population thereabout, and the 577 million we do a year barrels by that amount, you find out that we're not even doing up to 3 barrels per person.